Why are you guessing? Is it good, I guess?
Because I realized I wasn't quite as restful as I would have wanted it to be.
Yeah.
But I rested a bit. Yeah. And we're ready for the new week.
Yeah, we're ready for the new week. Now, before open conversation, because there's a story here that talks about Kaduna, Dangote, Bua refineries. They may source crude oil from abroad. Now, that's a major story on the Guardian newspaper. But before that, I read, I think, on the Vanguard that the people are selling their cars, their private assets to feed, not to invest, but to feed their families. And this morning when I discussed it, someone actually called and saying that he's about selling his car right now to feed. So it's gotten to that where people will start selling their properties just to eat.
I mean, look, Mary, when people hear inflation is 26.9, 26.7%, food inflation is 30%, and we always say that those numbers are actually not correct. They're not a true reflection of what's happening out there. People may not understand, especially people in the middle class, the upper middle class Nigerians, who are actually the loudest voices that you hear out there. You know, the people that influence conversation in this country, people that influence policy. They are disconnected from what is going on out there. They're disconnected from reality because they are cocooned. They're living a cocooned life. So what you say is not surprising. Every week, you're a woman, and I know you go to the market.
Yeah.
Every week, the prices of food increases every week. So the question now when you go to the market is not how much is it. The question now is how much is it now? Because you expect every time you visit the market, they will tell you the price has gone up. The price of chicken has increased 3 times in the last 1 month.
That's true.
3 times. I'm saying this authoritatively because I'm involved in a business now that buys chicken regularly. The price of eggs have increased twice in the last 1 month. The price of fish has increased in the last 2 months. Rice is now 60,000 naira per bag, some 65. Then for the local ones, it's 50,000 naira per bag. 50.
You're correct.
Rice. You know, it's crazy what is going on out there. So, and the income, the salaries of people, or for people that are not salary earning, you know, the income earning capacity of these people who are suffering these increases have not gone up. So it's not surprising. It's just a matter of time before you eventually find yourself in a place where your income is pursuing your expenses. You have borrowed in order to continue that chase, and the loans have now swallowed up the entirety of your monthly expected income, whether it's salary or profits. And you now find yourself looking around for, okay, how else can I get cash? Because I must eat. And people will start selling assets. And you know, so this is the next stage in the process of when you have hyperinflation, galloping inflation. The first stage is that people's income will not be able to catch up, will not be able to match up with their expenses, you know, and they start borrowing. The next stage is that their income will not be able to meet their debt service obligations, you know. And then after that, the next stage is that they start selling assets.
And that's
after you have finished selling all your assets, what's remaining? So we're walking down a very dangerous pathway, Mary. We're walking down a very dangerous pathway where people would have sold everything that they can sell. And there's nothing else to sell. They are completely overborrowed. They have obligations that they cannot meet. And they're looking around and saying, what next? And they will enter the road. So civil unrest is a real possibility if things don't change and change very quickly.
Now, you're very correct. But the CBN governor, Cardoso, has said that he's doing everything he can to fight the inflation. And we see that investors are back the radar. They are investing now in the economy. According to this headline in Business Day, it says that Nigeria back on investors' radar as Naira rallies below 1,000 Naira. So we saw the appreciation of the Naira. Some say because of the backlog that is being cleared. Others says that our president is working already and we should expect more. Now, my question to you is this. Is it temporary, what we are seeing right now? that the Naira is appreciating? Is it temporary or something is really being done about it?
That's a fantastic question, Mary, because that is the question that must be asked. When I heard this news, it's fantastic news, and nobody, I don't think anybody will hear, except if you are one of those people that have been deliberately hoarding up dollars, buying dollars, and sometimes people do that just for safety of capital. In a high inflation environment, what people do is to go into hard currency and metals, right? So you may not necessarily want to blame people that are doing that, but if you are one of such people, then you probably won't be happy to hear that the Naira is appreciating, because it probably means that you are losing money, because the chances are that you probably bought at higher than this new exchange rates that we have today. But everybody else will be happy, and the economy will definitely be better off with this appreciation. So this is fantastic news. The challenge for me personally, and what I've been saying, on platforms where I've had the opportunity to comment, is how. How is this happening? The how is very important, and it's the how that will answer the question you've asked. Is this temporary? Is this sustainable? Because we need to know the answer to this, and that is what the investor will depend on to make the investment decisions. The investor will need to know. So it's not enough to just see that exchange rates have miraculously appreciated. The Naira is miraculously appreciated. The how of it is very critical to an investor, because they need to make their investment decisions knowing that there is stability of the various factors that will affect the returns on their investment. So how is this happening? The CBN has what's the name they call that thing now? We're basically borrowing against the dividends, securitization of dividends of the NLNG. They told us about that. We get 7 billion from that. They told us about the 3 billion forward sale, crude sale swap with the crude sale loan with Afrexim, making a total, that was 3 billion, making a total of 10 billion.
Yeah.
But these are high value transactions. They call them big ticket transactions. These types of deals don't happen in days. They definitely don't happen in weeks. The due diligence, the paperwork required, and all of that takes time to complete. That you must meet precedent to those funds being drawn down and being made available to you are usually quite stringent. So I doubt that is the source of this inflow, this liquidity that is seeing the Naira appreciate. But maybe it is. Maybe there's some creative way that the CBN has been able to access some of those funds in advance. That could be a possibility, but we shouldn't be guessing. The CBN should come out to explain exactly what is happening and how it is happening and why it is happening, so that people can understand and can have confidence that this is sustainable and that it's going to continue like this. If we don't have that, then there's a problem. The second part of the answer to your question is whether it's sustainable or not. Remember, I've said before that all of these arrangements to bring in liquidity, to clear out backlog and meet current demand are temporary in nature, because the demand that is driving the backlog, the demand that drove the backlog in the first place, is ongoing. So there has to be measures put in place to increase the inflows into the markets, the liquidity, whether it's by our earning capacity, diaspora remittances, whether it's by foreign direct investment, whether it's by grants. There must be efforts, very clear, well-defined policies and actions that will bring inflows into the market sustainably. So going to mortgage our future income, which is what we've done with these two transactions, will not solve the problem sustainably. So now we need to talk about the things that the CBN must do to ensure that the supply side in our foreign exchange market is doing better than the demand, so that we can see a real appreciation. Until that happens, now will not last.
Now, thank you very much for that explanation, because the uncertainty of the appreciation, I think, is affecting the market. I'm talking about the inflation. Normally when Naira appreciate like this, it should affect the price of commodities. But we know that in Nigeria, when things go up most of the time, it does not come down. So when we're saying the dollar, the Naira is appreciating and the price of things are not affected, we don't really appreciate the appreciation.
Yeah, and this point you make is another very key thing that we need to understand. The reason the CBN, and in case they don't know this, they should know it now. The reason the CBN and the relevant authorities, Ministry of Finance and all that, must explain why this appreciation is happening is that there are people that are making pricing decisions. And the pricing decisions they're making sometimes will not be based only on the costs that they pay for their inputs. It will be based on information about what is likely to happen, what is most probable to happen in the future with their costs. So if I bought a shipload of cement or a shipload of flour, a shipload of rice or whatever, just using those things as an example, into the country today, and I'm bringing another shipload. So I bought the dollars that I've used to bring in that shipload at 1,300 naira to the dollar today, and then things get better. The naira appreciates to 900 naira to the dollar, and I'm bringing another shipload next month at 900 naira to the dollar. I'm buying dollars at 900 naira to the dollar. When that one comes in, I will not bring my prices down from the prices I increased them to when the exchange rate was 1,003. Why? Because I will not be sure this is temporary. So I will not want a situation where I bring my prices down and then there's suddenly a depreciation in the value of the naira again, and then I have to take prices back up. So there is a buffer time that people will use to observe what is going on in the market, to be sure that what is happening is actually sustainable and will last, before you then see them taking the bold step of reducing prices. So prices can come down, Mary. They can come down, and they have come down in the past, and I believe that they will. But for that to happen, we need to see this 900 naira, 970 naira to the dollar, perhaps go to 950, go to maybe 890, or go below 900 and stay there for about 2 months, maybe 3, before you then begin to see the market respond and prices start to crash. So what would make that process quicker is if the central bank is providing information so that decision makers are clear, they have clarity with regards to what is going on. They see what the CBN is doing, they can make their own judgment call, say, wow, this is great, this is sustainable, and then they make pricing decisions as a result of that. But right now, that is not happening. It's all shrouded
in secrecy
for what is happening, and there's somebody needs to come out and explain it. It goes beyond the Afrexim loan and the NLNG securitization thing, because those things are not supposed to have kicked in yet, based on standard transaction processing flows. So something else is at play, and we need to know what it is.
Thank you for that clarification. That something else is at play, and it's now on the CBN to make things clear for Nigerians and business owners. Now, let's talk about the crude oil story here. It says Kaduna Dangote Boa refineries may source crude oil from abroad. Now, this news generated a lot of talks, controversy. That, do you mean that Kaduna refinery that is due to open in December will have to import crude, and even Dangote will have to import crude from Venezuela, Saudi Arabia to operate the Kaduna refinery, due to come on stream next year? So we will import crude and also import the finished product. That's the conversation. I would like you to explain to the common man how we got here and why we are here.
Omo, Nigeria, this one, I think I want to speak pidgin. It's unreal. This is something that you can't make up. Like, if you wanted to write some high-stake story, some high-stake drama, maybe a movie that is business-oriented and governance-oriented, you can't make up this script of what is going on in Nigeria now. I mean, this is unbelievable. It's completely unthinkable, it's unimaginable, it's weird, it's unnatural. This is unnatural, that we produce something, a natural, we just basically dig into the ground and get these things out. We are unable to refine it, so we ship it out to refine and then bring back refined products. Then the refined products that we bring in will now start selling at international prices. One. Then that same item that we produce, that we're unable to refine locally, we now need to import that same item in order for us to refine locally that same item that we produce. How does this make sense? It is the most illogical conundrum I've ever, I keep saying that Nigeria is a country of contradictions, and this is as contradictory as it gets. However, the explanations are not far-fetched. It's really very simple. We're suffering from the failure of governance that we've had and that we've continued to have for decades. So we're paying the price for poor policy making. We're paying the price for corruption. We're paying the price for vested interests, having a sway and a control of our economy. We have an OPEC quota of 1.742 million barrels per day of crude. Average production over the last 6 months to 1 year has been about 1.1 million barrels per day. So we're shortfall 600,000 barrels per day, right? Our production capacity, as it stands today, is supposed to be somewhere around 2.2. So first of all, the question, even beyond the OPEC quota, we're supposed to be able to produce way more than the OPEC quota, and we should be begging OPEC to increase our quota. But we can't even meet that quota. Why? Because investment flows into the oil production, crude oil production sector, the upstream sector in Nigeria, has been hampered for years and years. Since the early days of the Buhari administration, new investment has not been going into that sector. And you understand the way that sector works, then you know why this is a problem. There is a need for constant investment in exploration and development of new fields as you are exploiting your current fields. So we have 37 what's the figure? It's 37 million. Our reserves is about 37 billion. I think it's billion barrels of crude that's sitting underground.
Barrel per day.
Thank you. It's sitting there, just there, right? It's the largest reserves in Africa, and it's proven reserves. But we can't exploit it. Why? Because the trajectory, the pathway that Nigeria has walked over the last couple of years has led us to a point where nobody has confidence in Nigeria. Nobody wants to bring their money in. Policy somersaults happen all the time. We've got a Petroleum Industry Act that we're not quite implementing, that we're struggling with the oil majors to enforce provisions of, and all of that. So investment is not coming. We're not producing enough. And then on top of the fact that we're not producing enough, we're stealing. Somebody is out there stealing a huge chunk of the little that we're producing. So what is now happening is that we have pre-sold. We have forward contracts on huge quantities of crude production. So we pre-sold even the 1.1 average million barrels per day that we're producing. A huge chunk of that has been sold in advance and collected the money today. Excuse me. We sold in advance, we collected the money today, right? So we have the conundrum of not even being producing enough. The one that we're producing, we've oversold already. We've taken the money, we've spent it, right? So where would the crude come for Dangote? So we now find ourselves in a position where our local refineries, including government refineries, Kaduna, Bua, Dangote, modular refineries, everybody will now go out there to import. We have a total, if you add the production capacity, the daily production capacity of all of these refineries, Kaduna, Bua, Dangote, and a few of our modular refineries, we're talking of almost 2 million barrels per day. Meanwhile, our total production capacity average as at now is 1.1. We hit 1.3 in the month of September, but that is for that 1 month. Average over the period is been around 1.1, and we need about 2 million barrels per day. So of course we're going to have to import. So, we really, really need to take a hard, long look at ourselves and ask ourselves the question about what we're doing wrong. Something is drastically, desperately wrong with Nigeria and the way we're conducting our business.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Segun Shukbito. It's always insightful speaking with you. I wish we had more time, but we need to stop here. Hopefully next Monday we'll continue from where we stop. And by then there will be other developments. Let's pray that Naira exchange rate will be around 850 by then. So we can at least begin to celebrate. Let's hope so. And the CBN clarifies how it's doing it. Yep. Yeah. Thank you very much, Segun Shukbito. He is a principal partner, Woodridge and Scott Consulting. We'll go for a short break, and when we come back, I'll have Rufai Oseni. He will be talking about saving the Naira. What can be done to save the Naira to ensure that we continue this appreciation? Keep it here. We are the voice of the people, 90.3 FM, and you are listening to Business Around Town.
37 consecutive years, the annual Lagos International Trade Fair had remained a platform for indigenous and foreign exhibitors, as well as visitors all over the world, to introduce or showcase new products, network business to business, and do clearance sales for 10 solid days. This largest exhibition in West Africa comes out this year with multiple specialized fairs, which include Children's Con, Entertainment Village, Tech Hub, and African Hall. This year, more than 200 Chinese exhibitors have booked their spaces. Several Japanese exhibitors and many exhibitors from African countries are all booked for the trade fair. As an exhibitor, the fair affords you the needed opportunity to get your products and services showcased to over 1 million people during the fair. As visitors, you get to buy many household items at discounted rates. Date, Friday the 3rd to Sunday the 12th, November 2023. Venue, Tafawa Balewa Square, TBS, Lagos. In commemoration of the 135th anniversary of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, there shall be 3 days of free entry to all visitors. For sponsorship and participation, contact 0700 524 6724 or send an email to litf@lagoschamber.com. To book your space today, visit www.lagosinternationaltrade.com.
Are you looking for the perfect getaway?
Look no further than the luxurious accommodations at Airport Golden Tulip Hotel, Lagos, number 42, Muritala Muhammad International Airport Road, Lagos.
Relax and unwind in a beautifully appointed rooms featuring all the amenities you need for a comfortable stay.
Whether you're traveling for business or pleasure, our attentive staff is here to ensure that your everyday need is met. We also offer complimentary pick-up and drop-off from the Lagos Airport.
Take advantage of our state-of-the-art fitness center, outdoor pool, and enjoy a delicious meal at our on-site restaurant.
With stunning views, world-class service, and a prime location, Airport Golden Tulip Hotel, Lagos is the perfect choice for your next vacation or business trip.
So, why wait? Book your stay today and experience ultimate in comfort and luxury at Airport Golden Tulip Hotel.
For bookings and reservations, please call 0815-8003-333 or 0815-7003-333. You can visit our website at airportgoldentuliphotel.com.
Airport Golden Tulip Hotel, where luxury meets comfort.
Are you aware that Iruka Online Limited installed and designed a 100,000 capacity church building? Oh yeah, we are the sole distributors of global leading brands all over the world, such as Wafte Line Array, speakers and digital amplifiers, Preseno's digital mixers and studio equipment, Coswell workstations and keyboards, Fender guitars, Mapex drums, Ashdown bass combos, just to mention but a few. We offer flexible payment plan handled by our financial department with 24/7 customer care support system. You can visit our website on www.iruka.com to avoid buying fake products. You can also visit our showroom at number 36 Lagos International Airport Road beside Golden Tulip Hotel. Iruka, never settle for less. The award-winning pizza in the US is now here in Nigeria. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Romeo, the pizza champions, and cold berry ice cream, light in every scoop. Visit any of our outlets and feel the rich taste from the pizza champions and cold berry ice cream at 11 Road by First Avenue, Festac Town, 28 at Denira Ogunsanya Street, Surulere, 13 Admiralty Way, Lekki Phase 1. Romeo's Pizza and cold berry ice cream. Romeo, the pizza champions.
We understand that having no financial stability can be very frustrating as it limits your possibilities in life. So it's important that you take hold of your finances today. 1001 ways you can get started. All you need is a guide. VOP has acknowledged this need and has provided a solution. Mariona Debbie invites experts across various fields, and they are dedicated to helping you create lasting revenue. Join business around town every week, Mondays to Fridays at 9:30 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. on Voice of the People 90.3 FM. Voice of the People, now you have a voice. There's no enabling environment.
The government isn't helping.
Transportation is tough.
Voice of the People 90.3 FM. Do not touch that dial.
The Naira to the dollar then increased, and as I was saying, we just started experimenting. Welcome to another edition of Saving the Naira series, where we get to talk about some ideas as regards saving the Naira, and it's more than a joy being here. So today, let's even go historically and look at how our currency started, our currency emerged. The Naira as it is today pretty much was not what Nigeria used to spend back in the days. And let's talk a little bit about currencies in the West African area. Truth has to be told, currencies really emerged because the colonialists had to look for forms of trade and a value exchange system. And that was how currencies emerged. And prior to this time, there were all sorts of means of trading. I mean, obviously the trade by barter was there and other means of trading until finally a currency system started. And this was when something called the West African Currency Union pretty much started. And when the West African Currency Union, started many years ago, as a precursor to, most of our currencies today on the African continent. So as I was saying, pretty much the West African Currency Board, as it was called then, sorry about the word West African Currency Union, I was saying about what applies now. But the West African Currency Board that was introduced in 1912, started as a result of the report of a departmental committee set up by the Secretary of State to inquire into, currency use in British West Africa. So pretty much the British were here and they dominated our trade with other countries too. In fact, I take that back. It was not only the British that dominated our trade. The Germans too played a heavy role in terms of trade. In fact, they were leading trading partners. And when this committee was set up, the board was responsible for production and distribution of currency in Gold Coast, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, and the Gambia. Pretty much under this area, British colonialist tendencies then. And in line with their gradual movement towards independence, the four countries began to use their own respective national currencies. And the board entered into a detailed arrangement to facilitate the withdrawal and redemption of these currencies and stationed representatives in four capitals to superintend the destruction of the notes and shipment of coins to the UK. So the board was only dissolved in 1965. And its assets and liabilities were handed over to Crown agents who became responsible, for its residual function. So those are the early, days of currency here. And when you look at it, pretty much the British colonialists, everything around our currency, they were the ones that led the way as regards our currency. But when most African countries started getting independence in 1960, what happened again was there was now a new push as regards, currency and how exchange was going to be done and all of that. And then this now led, to something called, the Sterling Union that a lot of these West African colonies had to get into. The Sterling Union was pretty much a union of countries that spent sterling, the British pound sterling, and Nigeria was part of them because it was pretty much pounds and shillings, and a lot of these countries, were part of that union, and it continued for quite a while until the 70s, where Nigeria changed, or the Sterling area, as it was called, or the Sterling blocks, or the Sterling territory. Pretty much, they started in the 1930s, when the sterling left the gold standard. So most currencies were pegged, to the sterling. But we Nigeria as a country, we pretty much started agitating to leave that. Awolowo was in charge of the economy then, and he finally started the push that led to having the Naira. So just to give you an historical antecedent of where we came from, and finally in 1973 we had the Nigerian Naira. It was introduced on the 1st of January 1973. It replaced the Nigerian pound at the rate of 1 pound to 2 Naira. That was the exchange rate. So at that point in time, the term Naira, in fact, was coined from Nigeria by Obafemi Awolowo. The Naira as a currency was launched by Shehu Shagari as Minister of Finance, and in 1973, but Obafemi Awolowo had pretty much done the groundwork and the agitation and all of that. And the Central Bank of Nigeria claimed that they attempted to control the annual inflation rate between 10%. And in 2011, we've been having a lot of problems, with the Naira. So that we had the Nigerian Naira 73 that was pegged against the pound at a rate of 2 to 1. But as that continued, 73 marked a turnaround, because that was when we had the Yom Kippur War. And the Yom Kippur War led to a big push in the Naira, but it also brought around its attendant inflation, because that was when what we really used to produce a lot before, which was agricultural produce, then we started to slide. Well, 73 was also a key year, because apart from the blessings of Yom Kippur, we also had a very good bounty as regards cocoa production and everything. So we earned a lot of revenue. So once Nigeria started to make a lot of money in the 70s, then definitely the currency started to strengthen. The currency also strengthened because we had not fully become a very dollarized, or we didn't have this big demand for foreign currencies like we have today, because a lot of our demands were quite low, and Nigeria started to grow as an economy. Then inflation also set in, but we could still, meet our demand for foreign currency, because to a very large extent, we're a highly productive economy. There were a lot of companies, there were a lot of industries, so the productive sector was still in top gear. In the 70s, a lot of car manufacturing started with the Peugeot Automobile of Nigeria, and we used to, keep our things within. A lot of people bought Peugeot cars. The Naira was strong, 2,000-3,000 Naira, they would get a good car and all of that. And that continued till the 80s. So the problem pretty much started around the 80s, because as a country, we had made a lot of money. Then we went on a binge of spending. First, many flashpoints that really affected us was subsidies. So we started heavy subsidies, and we pretty much will subsidize anything possible, which the argument then was that it was a good idea because they wanted a lot of people to be able to benefit, and it did help a lot of people, in all fairness. Academic subsidies, education subsidies, and some other subsidies. But also, we opened this Pandora box of corruption. So the first real push as regards that was the case of Festac 77. Festac 77 was a big Pandora's box of corruption, because it led to a lot of problems. There was massive corruption as regards contracts, and we had to import, a lot, and do some contracts around Festac and all of that. And around also that 77 time, we had what we call the cement armada, because a lot of money was coming into the country. Then we truly also wanted to grow at a scale. So most of those cements were there in the ports, and to clear them was a problem. And that also set Nigeria back, because there were many international litigation. The shipping companies wanted their money. Nigeria wouldn't pay on the demurrage, and it really set us back a lot. There's a whole lot of cash cases internationally that are being cited today. In fact, some of them were decided by the great Lord Denny, they normally quote, as regards what happened with the cement armada. So it was vis-a-vis that time too. In the 70s, they paid the Udoji Awards. So because we had a lot of money, and the famous saying also, the problem is not money but how to spend it, came up in the 70s. But the question was, how did we use the wealth? How did we use the windfall? But how we used the windfall was reflective already in the early 80s. The economy had started to struggle. Because we're totally dependent on oil, slump in oil and all of that from the good days of the 90s and the 80s, pretty much set us back for a while. And we started to struggle economically. And it is that struggle that led to toppling of governments. In the 70s, yes, we returned to democracy, but also there was massive corruption in 79 after we returned to democracy. Then we went back to a military regime in 83 as a country. So just a little bit background to again about our currency, the Naira. Naira was introduced in denomination of half, that's 50 kobo, 1 Naira, 5 Naira, 10 Naira, 25, 20. Okay, half kobo, 1 Naira, 1 kobo, 5 kobo, 10 kobo, 25 kobo, with half kobo and 1 kobo being in bronze, and higher denomination being in copper nickel. The half kobo coins were minted only in that year. In 1991, smaller 1, 10, and 20 kobo coins were issued in copper plated, along with the nickel-plated 50 kobo and 1 Naira. On 28 February 2007, coins were issued in 50 kobo, 1 Naira, 2 Naira, with 1 Naira and 2 Naira being in bimetallic strip. Some Nigerians expressed concern over the usability of 2 Naira. The deadline for exchanging the old currency was set at 31st of May 2007. And the central bank stated that half kobo to 25 kobo coins were withdrawn from circulation with effect from the 28th of February 2007. So we went from a country that had coins before to a country, obviously, that doesn't have coin any longer. The Central Bank of Nigeria also introduced in 73 5 kobo, 1 Naira, 5 Naira, 10 Naira, 20 Naira. In 1984, the colours of the Naira were changed in an attempt to control money laundering, just like we had in the last elections, and it caused a lot of problems. But there was also a story about, despite the fact that they said people shouldn't bring money in, some people still brought money in through the country at that point in time, boxes load full of money. And that story is still out there till date. So in 1991, 50 Naira notes were issued, while 50 kobo and 1 Naira notes were replaced by coins. This was followed by 100 Naira in 1999, 200 Naira in 2000, 500 Naira in 2001, and 1,000 Naira on October 12, 2005. By 2005, there were newer versions of 5 to 50 Naira notes were introduced, and originally 10, 20, and 50 Naira notes were to be polymer. So the notes were slightly smaller and redesigned. In mid-2009, when the Sanusi Lamido took over as CBN governor, the Central Bank of Nigeria changed the 5 Naira, 10 Naira to 50, and 50 Naira to polymer notes. So pretty much just some more information about the Naira, our currency. So it's been a ding-dong, but pretty much because the economic circumstances became problematic in the 80s, and crude oil price had slumped, there's been a lot of corruption and all of that. Then we started the first debates of how to go and take money from the IMF. But the IMF too had its own conditions. In fact, we went back and forth. There was the SAP riots as regards it. Before then, there was a massive, economic situation that led to another phenomenon in the early 80s, especially when Buhari came in, called essential commodities, where in a bid to be able to control prices, essential commodities, were bought, as it were, only from regulated government stores. That also opened up racketeering and all of that. And there was a lot, going on at that time. That was also the days of import licensing, where some people were making in rackets. I mean, what just shows is that, you see, any attempt government makes to be able to fix parameters in the economy, it's always bedeviled with a lot of corruption. So finally, after back and forth debate, sometimes riots here and there, we finally had to bite the bullet to be able to take some money to shore up the economy from the IMF. And 1986, we started, experimenting with various attempts to save our Naira. So the first hit on all of us was 86, where we had a couple of windows to be able to save the Naira. So when we have that and the windows came in, then we had multiple windows in sort of a way to be able to control foreign exchange and all of that. Then we started to have problem. So the price of the Naira now increased. And when we first allowed the Naira to start finding its shape, then the margin started to move away from the dollar. And once the margin started to move away, we couldn't nip it in the bud any longer. We just started to move around and just to hurt ourselves and all of that as an economy. And, importers and exporters, were required to get appropriate license for the Federal Ministry of Commerce before they could participate in foreign exchange markets. That was in 86. Generally, procedures followed the international standard of letters of credit and all of that had been the case for all of that. Increased emphasis was placed on export promotion, as a means. This included arrangement for setting up export zones, concession to exporters to retain 25% of proceeds, liberalization of import and export licenses. All of this was done. The exchange control was discarded on September 26, 1986, in order to evolve an exchange rate mechanism that will better reflect the underlying macroeconomic reality. So we started the second tier foreign exchange market that came into place on September 26, 1986, when the determination of the Naira exchange rate was made to reflect market forces. The modalities of the management of foreign exchange market have substantially since, been based on that SEF, in line with the principle of structural adjustment program, which emphasized that market approach to price determination. Within the basic framework of market determination of Naira rate, various methods were applied and adjustments carried out to fine-tune the system. A transitory dual exchange rate, first and second tier, were adopted in September 1986. On 2nd of July 1987, the first and second tier markets were merged into an enlarged foreign exchange market. Various pricing methods such as marginal, weighted, and average and Dutch system were adopted. With the introduction, of SEF, the Federal Ministry of Finance had its allocative powers transferred to CBN, but it retained approving powers on the public sector transaction. The constant fine-tuning of the market culminated in complete floating of the Naira on March 5, 1992, when the system of predetermined quota was discontinued. The pressure, on the foreign exchange market resulted in the reversal of the policy of floating the Naira in 1994. So we had floated the Naira before 1992 and we reversed it. The reversal of the policy in 1995 was that of a guided deregulation that necessitated the institution of the autonomous foreign exchange market, AFEM. Apart from the institution of an appropriate mechanism for exchange rate determination, other measures increasingly applied in in managing Nigeria's foreign exchange resource include demand management and supply policies. The CBN and the government have actively fostered the development of institutions such as Nigerian Export Promotion Council and Neximbank to earn more foreign exchange. The AFEM metamorphosed into a daily two-way quote interbank foreign exchange market, IFEM, in 1999. IFEM was expected to broaden and deepen the foreign exchange market on a daily basis. After that didn't work, then the retail Dutch auction system and the whole Dutch auction system and interbank rate system regime were used within this period. The retail Dutch auction system conducted auctions twice a week, and the bids were based in the whole Dutch auction system and were conducted twice a week, and the banks brought in their own accounts to be sold to customers. There were transferability of funds and banks, unlike the RDS. The bank in 2015 also adopted the interbank banking rate, where all banks, traded also on the interbank markets. The banks intervene as need arises. So this is just to show you that we have tried, many foreign exchange methods. But you see, also part of the problem in all of the methods we're trying was also that there was a lot of round tripping. People were gaining based on, the arbitrage in this sector. And the banks too also had their own role to play in all of this. So I'll just give you an historical brief statistical antecedents of the banks. So take, for instance, in 1986, before we started this foreign exchange markets, there were 41 banks in Nigeria. Because we started this foreign exchange regime in 1986, there were 41 banks in Nigeria. As of 1987, they rose to 50 banks because with the foreign exchange market, they knew there was a market for arbitrage and all of that. And they had over 1,000 branches. As of 1988, they rose to 66 banks. As of 1989, there were 81 banks in Nigeria. As of 1990, there were 107 banks with over 2,000 branches. As of 1991, there was 119 banks. As of 1992, there were 120 banks with 2,391 branches. As of 1994, the banks scaled down again to 116 banks with 2,447 branches. As of 1997, they had scaled down to 115 banks with 2,477 branches. 1998, most of the banks had failed again. 89 banks with over 2,220 branches. 2001, they rose to 90 banks. 2005, there were 89 banks with 3,357 branches. 2006, this was the banking reform happened between 2005 and 2006. They were back to 25 banks with 3,233 branches. 2010, we had 24 banks with 5,809 branches. 2017, we had 25 banks with 5,630. So in all of this too, the banks too had a big role to play because they also enjoyed the arbitrage markets. In 2016, the CBN adopted a managed floating exchange rate to enhance the efficiency and bring about more liquidity. Transparent foreign exchange market due to increased pressures in the foreign exchange market coupled with low accretion reserves arising from declining receipt from crude oil sales. The central bank issued a guideline for the representation of the game. The guideline moved the tight currency control of the Naira, leaving market forces to determine the value of the currency. On the takeoff of the new regime, they cleared the backlog then of about 4.02 billion. Under the new regime, the value of the Naira and the interbank market was largely driven by demand and supply. Central Bank of Nigeria, on the other hand, intervened directly in the interbank market to boost liquidity in the system. The main objective of the new regime is to enhance efficiency and facilitate liquidity and transparency, thereby attracting more foreign exchange more foreign investment in the system. To further implement the managed float rates, the bank introduced retail special secondary intervention dedicated to raw materials, machineries, airline, petroleum products, and there was also a secondary market intervention sales dedicated to raw materials. Small and medium enterprise window for small-scale importation of $20,000 and below per quarter, subject to completion of Form Q, supported with performer invoice with importers BVN. The introduction of investors and exporters I&E foreign exchange window would also increase the transparency. They claim will increase the transparency and sustainability and all of that. Introduction of Naira settled OTS FX features and all of that, were brought about in June 2016. But as we all know, all of that too was abused. And that was what led to the conversation about, 43 items you've been hearing recently, because it was part of that some 43 items were said, that we could produce those items, that the people that imported those items could go source their dollar from elsewhere. But you see, the most important problem with our currency is the fact that we have not been able to diversify and bring about a very highly productive economy. And there's been no real creativity in our economic sector. And that's why I had to give you all the empirical statistics. So take, for instance, the banking sector.
You're listening to Voice of the People, 90.3 FM. I had to cut in. You were listening to Rufai Oseni talking about how to save the Naira. It's been business around town on Voice of the People, 90.3 FM. My name is Mary Onaife Debbie. We'll have to stop here now because of time. But next week, Monday, we'll continue from where we stopped to saving the Naira. I hope you had a good time listening to the program today. I'll be here again tomorrow, Tuesday, for another fresh edition of Business Around Town. And it's going to be on Wealth Creation Tuesday with Godwin Oyefeso. So keep it here. Do not change the dial. Coming up next is Area Matter.